Welcome back to another episode of the Media Pass. I'm your host, Alex, with my other host, Matt, and we are joined by a very, very special guest, good friend of the show, one of the hardest working people in the business right now, our good friend, Es. Es,
hello.
How the heck are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you for the invite. Appreciate you guys having me on. First of all, awesome that you guys are doing this podcast. I know I've said it to you guys separately, but just very cool. Kudos to you guys. Love both of your work. So shout out to y'all, man.
Thank you, man. Likewise. We were very excited that you were available because, like I said at the beginning, we know you're a very busy man. You've got work everywhere. You're posting all the time. As somebody who makes videos myself, you post so many videos, and I'm just like, how does he find the time? I just can't even wrap my head around it. So
yeah,
we're very excited.
A lot of neglecting the wife. A lot of days where
just publicly admitting that on the podcast is crazy.
No, I'm kidding. I'm only kidding. But no, yeah, man. Yeah, a lot of hours spent, man. I'm sure, just like you guys, man.
Yeah. Matt, as always, I have to ask, how the heck are you?
Okay, good. I shouldn't have jumped the gun there. I should know by now. I have a story, a quick story. Should I share it?
Oh boy.
An S story.
Absolutely.
You might not remember this. But there's like a theory out there. It's really only in my mind that S isn't actually a real person. He's just me from the future.
Oh yeah.
So like me and S are, to my knowledge, two of the only Middle Eastern people, I would say, like in the NBA Twitter space, right? Is there really any other people who cover the league at large?
There's a few, but yeah, I would say for the most, it's not. I'll say it's not like an abundant thing. There's not a lot.
Yeah. And I don't know. When I was first starting out, I DM'd S. He's, by the way, he's a great guy. You should all DM him. He'll answer every DM. Everyone listening to this, shoot him a DM.
Oh god.
But yeah, I DM'd him when I was first starting out, asking him for some advice, and he started telling me his life story, and I'm like, what the shit? This is like literally my life I'm living right now. He went to law school, realized he didn't like it. Dropped out, decided NBA basketball was more important than the law. And then he even he said something to me. He prophesized. He saw I had a picture with my girlfriend as my bio. He's like, that girl you're dating, you're probably going to end up marrying her. And so I've been with her, since then. It's been over whatever. We're going to be celebrating 3 years next month. Shout out to Morgan. But yeah, so that's my little S encounter. He's basically me from the future. We're the same height too. Our hair. I think I'm on the trajectory of
hopefully
hair loss.
I was gonna say hopefully the hairline stays intact, my brother.
I don't know, dude. I mean, I have some heart-to-hearts with myself in the shower, man. I see things that I was hoping I wouldn't see for a while.
Oh man, yeah, the hairline, man. Alex, you're staying strong, brother. I see it. You're staying strong.
It's coming. I know. I'm gonna hit 30, and it's just all downhill from there. I know what my dad looks like. I know what's coming for me.
Well, it's just leaning into the whole media person looks like a bald man with a beard wearing a plaid shirt type of thing. I think we can all kind of work into different variations of that, you know?
A million Twitter profile pictures just popped into my mind. I'm like, oh yeah,
people will think we're AI.
Everyone looks the same. They're all going towards the same end goal.
I sort of experienced that when we went to Summer League. I'm like, I interacted with a bunch of people that we knew from Twitter. I'm like, oh man, everybody kind of looks similar, where bald guy, beard, wears plaid. That's sort of the media prototype, if you wanted to.
Well, all of this is totally irrelevant to what we're going to be talking about today. Obviously, today is Friday, February 9th, 2024. Yesterday was the NBA trade deadline. It was interesting because I feel like this trade deadline was very different from what we've become accustomed to. I think there was a lot less star movement. I would say, as far as I can tell, outside of Pascal Siakam, which wasn't really a buzzer beater that happened weeks ago. It was mostly smaller trades for less consequential players, quote unquote, less consequential in the sense that no one was trading for superstars or big names. It was mostly I think the biggest trade was probably the PJ Washington trade, the Buddy Hield trade.
Yeah.
The Knicks one, maybe.
Gordon Hayward.
Pistons.
Yeah, definitely. So before we jump the gun a little bit, do you guys have any bird's eye view, macro level observations about the trade deadline before we start going through all of these?
I'll go first. I would say for the most part, I was doing some winners and losers for the analysts.com. And I would say GMs are getting smarter. Definitely front offices are getting smarter. I saw a lot less like head scratchers. I think there's 3 teams that really pissed me off this deadline. 2 of them just didn't make any trades. I think you guys know who I'm talking about. Chicago Bulls and Atlanta Hawks. But
Yep.
so I think teams are just getting smarter. And like while Alex said, these guys weren't like eye-catching, like, jump off the screen names. They're definitely the title odds, depending on how some of these moves actually end up playing out, like in practice. I think it did play a part in whatever happens this spring and summer with the NBA finals and whatnot.
Yeah. I think the one thing I noticed, and maybe this is sort of a CBA implication, is that teams are a little bit less willing to take some risks and take flyers. Like this was a role player trade deadline, which is funny because this free agency class coming up is like a role player free agency class. If you exclude the Pascal Siakams and James Hardens, which are likely going to re-sign, like the rest of the guys are pretty much a crop of role players. And then from what people say about the 2024 draft, it's a role player draft. So it's like I feel like we're going to see less star movement now moving forward with the new CBA. And maybe a little bit more of an even landscape as we've seen so far this season with the NBA, where it just seems like everything is sort of spread out,
Yeah, I'm with you guys, and I'm not a super big cap guy. I've read the last CBA. I read way more than I needed to. But the new one, I'm not super well versed in. But it sounds like a lot of teams are not interested in heading over that second apron, and it makes sense. The restrictions that get placed on you if you're above the second apron are insane. Basically cripples you in terms of any flexibility making moves and upgrading your roster. So I think a big part of this trade deadline was teams just being like, there's no need to do anything stupid. Let's just play it safe. And everyone kind of seemed to go all in their own way because it's so wide open. So to kick things off, I think we're going to go in order of the earliest, starting with what happened on
Alex.
February 7th. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had this one. I had this planned out in my head before we get started here, just to kind of give the viewers a glimpse of where I'm at mentally. So both of you guys are anime guys, right?
Yeah.
You guys watch anime,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
You guys watch Naruto, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's obviously like my favorite one. It's a lot, not an unpopular opinion, right? There's this one scene I was thinking about in the car last night as I was DMing you guys, about how I'm willing to take as long as it'll take to go over each and every one of these trades. Do you guys remember that one scene when Orochimaru is like walking in on Kakashi giving Sasuke that curse mark? Do you guys remember it?
It's been a long time.
It's been a while. It's been a while. I was going to say the same thing. It's been a while.
Okay. Maybe this won't hit the way I was hoping it would, but I'm going to tell it anyways. Irrational confidence is an important part of this job, folks. But so Kakashi, he goes Orochimaru, step back. And he goes take one more step closer and one of us will die here. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, honestly, man, we are going to go so hard. One of us is going to die here right now, talking about all these trades. At least mentally.
Hopefully
that won't actually happen.
Yeah, hopefully that's not the case. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about last night.
Nice.
Well, the first trade. So, real quick, I'm going to make sure that you all are good with this because I've planned this out in a way that makes sense to me. The Pascal Siakam trade, I think all of us have kind of set our piece on it in our own areas of work. Matt, we've talked about it on the podcast. We're going to skip over the stuff that happened prior to the last couple of days and just start with the Celtics trade that sent Xavier Tillman to Boston. The Grizzlies received Lamar Stevens, a 2027 second round pick via the Hawks, and a 2030 second round pick via the Mavs. What's your take on this? How do you feel about Xavier Tillman in Boston?
I think first and foremost, this was a deal to just give them assurance on both Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford. Al Horford is like 37 years old. They've sort of rested him wherever they could this season. Kristaps Porzingis has missed a few games this year, so even like Kristaps has been obviously amazing and super impactful for the Celtics, but for the most part, you need someone who is going to be sort of an innings eater is the way I would describe Xavier Tillman, just to be able to have another body to throw out there. I know they've liked Luke Cornett, but there's just some things that Tillman can bring to you, especially on the defensive end in terms of just like size and versatility that Cornett might not be able to bring to you at the same level. He's also more physical than Cornett, I think. So just like a big bruising body that you can throw in there. And if they make it to the finals and it's like, hey, you're facing off against Nikola Jokic, like you're going to need those types of bodies to face off against that guy, even if it's just to take fouls, right? And I know that's simplistic, but I think that was what they had in mind when it came to Tillman. Celtics add some depth at the front court spot.
I actually got to see Xavier Tillman like in person, he was like within 3 feet of me. He came to Michigan State Alumni Week practice, and I got to sit in on that, and that was a cool experience. This guy's huge, by the way. Like his legs are like monstrous. Like if LeBron James and him like were walking in a back alley at the same time, NBA would be out its greatest player of all time. Let's just put it that way. But me and Alex talked about this on the pod, where I think the biggest realization I had this year, like you hear like people who like played the game or like have been involved in the game, coached in the game, they always talk about putting teams in the mud. And for a long time, I didn't understand what that meant. But I think my hypothesis is like, so you need spacing to win in basketball, right? But just because you don't have spacing doesn't mean you can't win. You can also win with physicality, right? And like something that I've noticed when the Miami Heat play the Boston Celtics in the playoffs, and the reason they put them in the mud all the time is because even though Boston pretty much always has the best spacing in the NBA, they are not like a super physical team. They're not great at, they don't have too much like girth per se. And so like when a physical team meets a spacing team without physicality, things get ugly. You get put in this mud, right? So this metaphorical mud. This move kind of gives them that physicality. Tillman's a big, strong body, and he'll be great against, some of the brutes they have to play, some of the messier teams they have to play in the playoffs. And like I said, he's, innings eater, insurance, whatnot.
Yeah, one of the things that when you look at, you go pull up the box score for Xavier Tillman this year, like you're going to see he's been terrible from the field as a center. And for the Grizzlies, obviously that's concerning because of how they're set up right now, where it's like, oh yeah, like we can't afford for someone who's getting this many minutes on our team to be this bad offensively. The Celtics, I feel like, don't really have that problem just because, they're not getting Xavier Tillman for his offense. I think they're probably going to be totally fine with his shortcomings on the offensive side of the ball. Plus, you think about how much his role is going to be diluted and specified now that he's in Boston. It's like, yeah, offensively, whatever we're not getting from you, we don't really care because we need your defense. We just need your defense to be able to hold things down for us. I didn't realize this. He is in the 99th percentile in defensive EPM.
Damn.
On the Grizzlies, who, they've been, I think, a decent defense this year, but not the elite defense that we're used to. And we've discussed this before. Defensive advanced statistics, all-in-one metrics like that, don't really like players who are on bad defensive teams. So for Xavier Tillman to be so highly regarded, I think he's able to bypass some of the negative bias that it has towards players that are on mediocre to bad defenses.
I think on the Grizzlies side, though, by the way, just like as a note, this is sort of interesting too, because if you pair this with the Steven Adams trade, It's like they are 100%. Maybe they change their mind in the summer, but they're committing to Jaren Jackson Jr. as their 5, right? Long term. And I think that's what was expected, 2-3 years ago when it was like, okay, they're pairing him with Steven Adams or they're pairing him with Xavier Tillman or whatnot. And the natural progression would be for him to take over as a full-time 5. So I just think that's like another small little wrinkle to this that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and also it's worth pointing out, we're not going to dive into this aspect, but they traded Steven Adams as well.
Yeah.
Which Steven Adams was fantastic when he was healthy for the Grizzlies. Like, not just the body and the size that they had to be able to just get rebounds, getting the ball up to guys in transition. I think he was a pretty underrated about just like moving it up the floor as quick as possible or getting it to Ja wherever he was, depending on where he was at on the court. But offensively, I think he was a very underrated passer. It's been discussed a little bit before, but kind of bummed to see him go as a Thunder fan. I've always been rooting for him. I'll continue to root for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving Steven Adams and Xavier Tillman and Brandon Clark still being injured, it's like, oh, wow, they're kind of shifting philosophies almost and going to try out something new when they've been going with these more like traditional bruisers for a while. But moving on to another team that defense is a big part of their identity, and they traded for not a defensive player. The Timberwolves traded for Monte Morris, and
wait, Alex,
in
can I stop you
exchange,
right there?
yeah,
Are you saving the Fontecchio?
that one's after this.
Okay, never mind.
So I'm going in chronological order.
Sorry, I thought that was the first domino to fall. Continue. My bad. I digress.
No, you're good. I'm just going off the NBA.com article.
Yeah.
Don't shoot the messenger, okay?
I won't. I'm sorry. No one's gonna die here.
Well, hey, you said it. The Timberwolves received Monte Morris. The Pistons received Troy Brown Jr., Shake Milton, and a 2030 second round pick. Personally, this trade is like fairly inconsequential in my eyes, just because not inconsequential in the sense that like it doesn't move the needle for anybody. Inconsequential in the sense that the Pistons sent somebody who doesn't really fit what they're doing in their timeline, and the Timberwolves sent players that were either A, simply not very good, or B, they weren't playing. Monte Morris is a reliable offensive backup point guard who can basically do what Mike Conley does when Mike Conley's not on the floor. And I think that's important because Mike Conley is starting to get older. I would say he is older at this point. Having Monte Morris is going to alleviate some of that burden off of his shoulders and allow him to, I think, get a little bit more rest, which is going to be really, really important for the postseason. Troy Brown Jr. wasn't really getting playing time. I'm somebody who's a big believer in Troy Brown Jr., and I would have liked to see him get more opportunity. Shake Milton, kind of hate to say it, but he was just not working out on the Timberwolves. So the Timberwolves basically got rid of two players who they weren't really getting much out of in exchange for a player who they're probably going to get a lot out of.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, first of all, I'm kind of maybe it's you, Alex. As last episode, Alex kind of put me on this anti Kyle Anderson bandwagon with him right now.
I saw the tweet, and honestly, I mean, I agree for the most part. Like, he has been really brutal on the offensive end for them. Yeah, for sure.
So I wasn't going to bring it up because I got a lot of heat for that, but you guys can kind of bring that to the forefront.
Yeah, but I don't know. I was kind of hoping they would get a better backup point guard. I really thought, and you talk about not being of consequence. Like, I think if they would have gotten Tyus Jones, like I would put the Timberwolves as an inner circle title contender right now, to be honest. But, so getting Monte Morris, he just doesn't really move the needle for me. I always thought it was funny when I looked through Pistons Twitter and they were like kind of waiting on this guy to come save their season. And I was just like, wait, what? What are we doing, guys? And then I'm with Alex. Me and Alex texted about this, but I tried to write something about it, but I couldn't find like a statistical argument for it. I was looking through Troy Brown Jr. stats, and I was like, just looking at them. They're like not good, but every time I watch this guy, I'm like, this guy has juice, man. Like I'm telling you, he can play. He can be in somebody's 8-man rotation in the playoffs. So the fact that they let go of him when they already have a spacing problem and get Monte Morris, I don't know. I wasn't too fond of it for the Timberwolves.
To your point about Tyus Jones, I just think like he's a unrestricted free agent this summer. Mike Conley is also an unrestricted free agent this summer, and it would have been a pretty clean transition to have him sort of take over that starting spot this year and then, lead into the summer where you have Tyus now as your starting point guard next to Edwards and, the rest of the group. For me, it's like this was a missed opportunity to maybe address that. Now, to be fair, they have a lot of financial implications moving forward this summer. And they're basically going to be a tax team. So I don't know if that was probably in their best interest. They wanted to get like a low cost move when it came to Monte, but he's played 68 minutes for the Pistons this year. Like he's been unhealthy. He's been injured. And I don't think this moves the needle, to your point. I'm just not sure if he's even going to be healthy enough. Maybe he is, hopefully, but I don't know. I just don't see that world in which he's going to be a really consistent playoff contributor for this team.
And outside of Naz Reid, Alex, who on that bench can shoot?
That's a great question.
Jordan McLaughlin, huh?
McLaughlin should not be get. I love McLaughlin, and every time he plays, like I'm happy for him. But he should know this team is too. They're too like in the weeds of contending to really have him play serious minutes. I think the ideal version of this team, it's got to be like to fully harness their powers. It's not going to happen this year, but you need Anthony Edwards to kind of be the nominal point guard. So you can like really have as much size on the floor as possible.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm kind of out on Jordan McLaughlin. I think his shooting numbers have been a little bit deceptive because history shows he is not the shooter that he's looked like. Unfortunately, I wish he was, but it's just there will be eventually a regression to the mean, and that could come at a very bad time. So that's one of the reasons why I'm like, okay, Monte Morris is going to be able to give us somebody who is a more reliable shooter than Jordan McLaughlin, because I love the guy, and I was even arguing that like he should have gotten way more minutes last year when they were dealing with the D'Lo stuff. That's another discussion for another day. But yeah, I agree. Off the bench, Naz Reid's really the only meaningful shooter. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been solid. I mean, fine. He's been fine this year as a shooter. He's 37% from the corner. 35% on non-corner threes, 36% overall, according to cleaning the glass,
which is better than Kyle Anderson, at least, right?
Yeah,
like
I wasn't gonna say it, but for some context, Kyle Anderson has made 6 threes this entire season.
Shut up. God.
What game are we at? What game are we at right now? Is it like 45, 50?
Yeah, something like that.
It's 50 games. He's made 6 threes.
Oh my God.
But leadership, right? Locker room presence, right? Things that
he fought their second best player.
I had people losing their minds at me in the quotes, in the replies to that tweet of just like, not only just like raw data, that data, like I had the people that agreed with it were like, this is unfortunately something that the eye test very much backs up. And then the only argument that I saw in favor of Kyle Anderson was like leadership, locker room presence. And I'm like, none of that matters if your team isn't winning when he's on the floor. Like, what? But different discussion for a different day. We don't need to dive into this. We can keep things moving. Otherwise, we're going to be here all day if we get me started on Kyle Anderson.
I'm willing to do it.
He's willing to die here.
We can move on to the trade that Matt's very excited about, clearly. Is it pronounced Simone Fontecchio or
Simone
Fontecchio?
Fontecchio. Yes.
He's Italian, correct?
He is Italian, yeah.
Okay. Matt you saw, we were texting about this in the last episode of the podcast. We did underrated trade targets, 6 underrated trade targets, where we each picked 3. Originally, one of my 3 players was going to be Simone Fontecchio. And at the last minute, I took him off. And I tell you what, I would have looked like a genius if I had put him in that episode, because I was like, this guy's a really good basketball player. So quick rundown of the trade before we start talking about it a little bit. Not a super massive trade. I don't think we need to dedicate too much time to it, but it is an interesting one. The Pistons receive Simone Fontecchio. The Jazz receive Kevin Knox, future 2nd round pick. I couldn't find the details on this pick. I'm not sure what year it is. I'm not sure if there's any protections on it or what. And then they also got the draft rights to Gabriel Procida. I don't know if
another Italian player.
All I heard is I kept seeing on Pistons Twitter, they got Mario Hezonja, whatever his name is. So I don't know. I don't know if they're just being racist but that's what I kept seeing. I think it's the 2024 Wizards pick. So it's a good second rounder they got.
Yeah.
I guess my thinking is, speaking of defensive EPM, last time I checked, Fontecchio was like 62nd percentile in defensive EPM, despite Utah being like 25th in defensive rating. So it just tells you he's like at least an average defender. Big body, can definitely shoot the ball. The Pistons and this is going to be the theme, I think, of our discourse on them, is they know their young core now, I think. With, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson, and Jaden Ivey, depending on the day. Now they just need to find like 2-way guys to kind of like grease the wheels for those 4, right? And this team, one of the big reasons why they were bad is they were just, had a bounty of 1-way guys who were like pretty good at offense, but awful on defense, or pretty good at defense and awful on offense. And so they can never find like that really good lineup balance. And I think, if Troy Brown Jr., Simone Fontecchio, or the other fellow we're going to talk about in a little bit, if 2 out of those 3 hit, I would call this like a massive win for the Pistons this trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, they lose Bojan and Alec Burks, and I know we'll get into that in a bit, but like you get younger guys who can do similar things to that, and hopefully Fontecchio can sort of serve as that connector on offense as well. He's, from the Jazz games I've watched, maybe this is just their system, but he's been really willing to like make that extra pass. Like if the defense is in rotation, he's going to be that extra guy to like swing the ball. And so I think some of that connective juice is going to be important for what the Pistons want to do next to that core. And obviously he's going to be able to space the floor for them. I like this a lot. Like this is one of those fringe moves that a rebuilding team makes that they like you're trying to win. Obviously the Pistons are in a position where, they have to start getting results a lot quicker. They haven't they haven't really had the success that they wanted to, obviously. But when you add a guy like Fontecchio, it gives them a little bit of more, I guess, juice is the word I would use. And then, some of the other trades that they made today as well that I'm sure we'll get to, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. Getting more just like, I feel like every player, not every player, but a lot of the players that the Pistons were working with were like, are there things that Killian Hayes can do well? Yes. Are there things that Bojan Bogdanovic can do well? Yes. Are there things Alec Burks does very, very well? Yes. But all of those players are very flawed players. Yeah. Like they all have things that are just like, oh yeah, he's so good at this, but this other thing that he does like makes it really hard on the rest of the team. It's like they just need neutral players, guys who can just be there and like be a play finisher or get rebounds or hold their own on defense. Like that's to me what you want around a young core, because then the young core, those are the guys who are taking the point on everything. They're the ones who are facilitating how that team is going to operate in growing and learning together, as opposed to like, yeah, Alec Burks is going to come in and, ISO and launch threes for 15 minutes a game. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that might get you a nice little, 9-point run, but your team's not going to win, and it's taking away shots from guys who need development. So I like getting these players who can just exist in a positive way.
Yeah, I think so. I just want to, this will kind of help guide for like listeners. It'll kind of make sense to them a little more because we're going to talk about Burks and Boyan, and I think that we all agree that they can contribute to the Knicks. The thing is, like, when you have flawed one-way players, there's two ways that they can really be beneficial to your team. One is their one way is like insane. Like they are elite at that one way, like elite offensive player, elite like Rudy Gobert, elite defensive player, right? Or everybody, they have like a really strong infrastructure around them. So it's okay to be like pretty good offensive player, bad defender, but you have 4 really good two-way guys playing next to you. The Pistons could never do that. So that's why these guys all looked really bad on that team. But in a different context, it's like, wow. Like, you know, Alec Burks, really nice 8th man on a team that just won 2 playoff series, right? That's when you get those kind of results.
Yeah. Moving on to another former Piston. This is a pretty inconsequential trade to me. I don't think we probably need to talk about it too much, but Corey Joseph is on his way to Indiana as well.
He got waived. He got waived.
Oh, he got waived? Well,
he was in a Drake song, wasn't he?
He was in a Drake song. He hit a big shot against Detroit one time again when he was with the Raptors, if you remember that. But yeah.
Well, I guess the Pacers got out of this a nice 2025 second-round pick via Charlotte and good old cash considerations. And the Warriors got a 2024 second-round pick. Yeah. Is there anything we got to say about this trade?
Thumbs up. That's all. What it is. I'll just thumbs up is all I'll give to that. Yeah.
Quietly interesting trade. The 76ers traded Daniel House Jr. To the Pistons. Pistons were very active. The Pistons also received a 2024 second round pick and cash considerations. 76ers received a 2028 second round pick. I have not looked at the numbers for Daniel House Jr.
He got released by the Pistons.
He got waived as well.
Yeah.
Another wave.
When I watched Sixers games this year, I was like, he's not bad. He's still like able to do some stuff, but
I think it was just a matter of bodies. They had like 19 guys on the roster at some point yesterday. Somebody had to go. Poor Killian. King Killian gone.
Yeah, I know. And they waived Ryan Arcidiacono. I don't know how to say
his last
name.
Arcidiacono.
Arcidiacono, thank you very much. Yeah.
That guy's a locker room dude.
Yeah. So, a funny Ryan Arcidiacono story. I was going to the Knicks-Raptors game to do a story on RJ Barrett, and I saw him, and I thought he was the trainer or like a ball boy or something. And I was like, "Hey, man, do you know by any chance where the media room is or whatnot?" He's like, "Dude, what? I'm going to play. I have to go." I'm like, "Sorry, I apologize. I had no idea. It was bad. It was bad."
Was he cool about it?
Yeah, he was cool about it. I feel like he probably gets that a lot, but yeah.
Jesus, that's such a bad look.
Oh my God, I felt terrible. I felt very terrible in that moment. I'm like, right, you're definitely on this team. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you put like a dozen pictures of just standard looking white dudes on a wall and told me to pick out Ryan Arcidiacono, I'm screwed. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
I'm sorry.
He looks
Ryan.
a lot like Corey Kispert.
He does kind of like
actually,
a smaller
now you say
version.
That, I think I know what he looks like.
Yeah.
I might be able to.
Ryan, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, man. I'm really sorry. I apologize.
Yeah. Come on the pod and we'll apologize virtually. S, I'm excited to talk about this trade with you.
Yeah.
The Raptors acquired Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji from the Utah Jazz. The Jazz received Otto Porter Jr., Kyra Lewis Jr., and a 2024. I think this might be the first round pick that we're talking about. A 2024 first round pick. How do you feel about this trade?
Man, it's bizarre on its surface. There's no question because, again, it was one of the only first-round picks traded. But Masai in his press conference pretty much said that they're not going to use all of their 2024 first. They have a potential of having 4 picks in the first 31 or 32 picks in the 2024 draft. A lot of people, the consensus is that this is a weaker draft. They just weren't interested in using all 4 or potentially 3 if that San Antonio pick conveys or not. But so they were going to use this pick at the trade deadline. How they were going to use it was going to be the big question. Some people thought they might use both, use 2 picks to go out and get a player that they really like or something along the lines of that. But they settled on getting Kelly and Ochai. And, I think for the most part, people will be kind of, I guess, shocked that they traded a first. But the way I look at it is that you can sort of get similar value out of a guy who's like Ochai Agbaji, who is like, 2022, I believe, NBA draft.
Yeah. 14th overall pick.
Yeah, 14th overall pick, like a lottery pick, right? You get to develop a guy who's sort of a more known entity than a guy you would pick at 29, which is what the pick will be for Utah this year. And so you get a guy you can develop who has some NBA reps, about 2 years of NBA basketball playing with Utah. He sort of fits the prototype of what this team needs eventually, which is a 3-and-D player. Now, the 3 has to come along and become more consistent. And then the defensive side of things, I think he's great off of the ball, but the on-ball awareness is something, at least from like just watching film over the last 24 hours, that's something that definitely needs to improve. So I think Ochai is the big swing. It's sort of like you're flipping a first for a first in that sense. And then on the other side of things with Kelly, I just think he like seamlessly fits what the Raptors look for in terms of like a passing big. They love running those like high post actions with Jakob Poeltl, dumping it off to cutters and whatnot. And Kelly is just going to thrive in that type of system. He's a little bit older, but he's also contract extension eligible right now. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of weeks we see them inking Kelly to a longer term extension, maybe something that's like shorter in or lower in the dollar value, because I think he's getting paid I think $13 million or $14 million right now.
The last time I checked Spot Rack, that was right around there.
Yeah,
I'll double check while you talk.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if like they sign him to maybe like an $8-9 million deal type of thing, maybe a 3-year type of term that keeps him there for the next couple of years and gives the team a little bit of control over Kelly. He is 33. Well, he's almost turning 33. So he's obviously on the older side of things, but I just think he makes a lot of sense for this group. And what I've noticed from Scotty, IQ, and RJ is that they definitely need a big that can help them develop. Jakob has been that over this last month, just as a screener. We talked about Steven Adams earlier, but I actually think Jakob is sort of playing a similar role for the Raptors as this just big body screener, good guy at the back line who can defend. Kelly isn't going to be the same, but he can provide some extra things that can help them developmentally. So I thought this was a good deal, man. I know some people are going to jump at it because they gave up a first, but they weren't going to use that first anyways, and it made sense to add some extra talent to a team that is pretty deplete of talent in their rotation.
It was $12.1 million.
There you go.
His salary this year. But dude, this is one of the other one I was telling you guys about. I said there was 3 teams that pissed me off. The Utah Jazz really pissed me off yesterday. Like really, really pissed me off. Like, okay, I get the Fontecchio one. I thought in my head, I'm like, okay, you trade Fontecchio for basically like a first round pick.
Yeah.
First of all, my general rule is like, I think people get too excited about the unknown of draft picks, like these non-tangible assets. Like I would much rather take like a proven player over a late first round pick, or like, unless you're like Memphis and OKC where your drafting track record is just so like indisputable that like, you'll be able to easily get that or a little bit more than that. Don't do the eye roll. You guys have a great draft record.
There's a lot of misses in there.
Yeah, you guys have a great draft record.
Terrence Ferguson, Hamidou Diallo.
He still has juice. They both still have juice, man.
Hamidou Diallo is cooking in the G League, by the way. I just want to say, Capital City Go-Go legend, Hamidou Diallo.
Shout out to him. UK legend.
Yes. Yeah.
But so I get the Fontecchio thing, right? But then, I heard reports reading the Michael Scotto stuff, And it's like, they want like a late first round pick for Kelly Olynyk. And honestly, if you're a contending team, I would definitely give like a late first for Kelly. He's worth it, like on his own. The Utah Jazz traded Kelly Olynyk and their 14th overall pick from 2 drafts ago for a 29th overall pick.
A piece of the Donovan Mitchell trade, right?
Yeah.
Like
seriously.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm not going to lie. Like this guy, he's got one of the ideal male bodies I've ever seen. Like he's in incredible shape. Yeah. Like the striations on his biceps, phenomenal.
Incredible.
Okay.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
No,
handsome chap. You're right. He's a handsome looking dude. Yeah.
Samson tweeted something about it yesterday, and I was like, thank God, like I'm not the only guy who thinks about that. But yeah. So I see, dude. To me, he has juice. Like he's like in somebody's like 8 to 10 man rotation. Like he's a strong body. High motor, really athletic. The shot's the shot right now, but he's a good corner 3-point shooter at least. Mm-hmm. I don't know, they just pissed me. And then the fact like the Jazz worked so hard this year to kind of get back to relevancy. They just beat, you guys watched the Thunder game on Tuesday? They played an incredible game. Like, Will Hardy going to the zone to slow down Shea, which by the way, bookmark that, playoff teams. That might be something right there to slow that Thunder team down. Yeah. But like the Thunder the Jazz going to that, coming back in that game, like really showing that, hey, we are just as good as these other big dogs in the West. And then you trade 3 of their top 10 rotation guys for literally no tangible assets. Like that's a big punch in the mouth to that team. Like, and they might not even get their first round pick this year is top 10 protected. I think it's owed to
OKC, yeah, right.
It's owed to OKC. Yeah, there you go. And they're probably not going to be a top 10 team. Like there's some really bad teams out there, and they're really good, even without those 3 guys, just because of how much of a star Lauri Markkanen is. I don't know. I just don't get it. I understand some of the rationale. It's not like the Chicago Bulls where it's just kind of like, are you okay, man? I understand you want to play Bryce Sensabaugh and Taylor Hendricks, and I'm sure they're fine players. They're going to be good players, but just like to get that trade really made no sense to me on their end from a value standpoint.
Yeah, I think the big thing was kicking the can down the road a little bit because like obviously Agbaji is on his rookie scale contract still. I think there's like a team option, like 1 more year, 2 more years, something along those lines, and then he's a restricted free agent, et cetera, et cetera. I think for the Jazz, I don't know how much this plays a role in it, but they traded for Agbaji, but he was drafted by the Cavs. I can't remember if that was a situation where the Cavs drafted him and then traded him, or if the
Cavs drafted him.
Okay. The Cavs drafted him, and then I think like 3 months later, he got traded.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was a situation where it was like, hey, use this pick on this player so that we can trade for him. But now that you guys say that, exactly, yeah.
He was still the 10th man, the 9th or 10th man on a team that went 19-10. Like, what are the odds you're going to get that from your 29th overall pick? Like, people, like I said, it's just like people are so excited about this obscure, unknown assets. But when you have like at least a solid thing in Ochai.
Yeah, but the 2024 first round pick, who's the pick from? Is it a Raptors pick?
It's the lesser of
OKC, Houston, the Clippers, and the Jazz. So it'll likely be 28, 29, 30, one of those. But yeah, unlikely 30. But yeah.
That either the Jazz have somebody that they just really, really like in that range that they're like, okay, we're gonna snipe this guy at 28, or maybe they're just that concerned with flexibility. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Agbaji. I've been singing his praises for a while, but I kind of see the logic. But I'm with you, Matt, where like, did they need to make this move? I think that's where the discussion. Did they need to make this move with Agbaji? Olynyk, I kind of did see as a positive asset, like we've discussed, where it's like, yeah, you could trade him and probably get a 30th overall pick in the first round. The fact that it ended up being a trade where they had to include Agbaji in it, it's like, whoa. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot. In theory, at least. So next trade that we have on the docket here feels pretty inconsequential. It's the Robin Lopez to the Sacramento Kings, as well as some cash considerations. The Bucks received the draft rights to Demetrios Agravanis. Probably
Good
saying
try.
that wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Lopez got waived too, so it's just like a pure cash move, I guess.
Sam Presti, go get him. We need a backup big, baby.
Hey, you know what? While I have you here, I'm actually surprised they didn't go after just any big body. Like, not even one, you know? They couldn't do the 2028 pick swap that the Mavericks did for Daniel Gafford, or like literally any. I don't know. That was surprising to me. I know that's not part of this conversation, but that was kind of a surprise.
We'll cover some of those bases when we talk about the Gordon Hayward trade, because I do think Matt kind of alluded to some of it about the zone. OKC is not without flaws, but we won't jump the gun here. You mentioned Daniel Gafford. The next big trade was the Mavericks acquiring Daniel Gafford. The Wizards got Rashawn Holmes and a 2024 first-round pick from the Mavericks via the Thunder. And I'm not sure the protections or how exactly that pick is going to convey. But in my opinion, Daniel Gafford is kind of a much needed defensive presence for their front court. He's a positive defensive player on a team that is bad defensively. I think they're like the fifth worst maybe defensively in the NBA, but Daniel Gafford has still managed to be a positive plus defender. I saw someone mention this on Twitter, and it was an angle that I hadn't thought of, and I don't know who I saw it from, so apologies. But this is not my original thought. But they mentioned that Derek Lively is going to be able to play more free now without having to worry about getting in foul trouble and like, oh, no, you can't foul out because then we're going to have to give Dwight Powell a lot of minutes. And it's like, right. Ooh, okay, yeah, I'll take it easy then. So now it's like, okay, either Daniel Gafford can play more freely and they don't have to worry as much because Lively's going to be able to come off the bench, or Derek Lively's going to be able to play more freely because they'll have Daniel Gafford come off the bench. I don't know how that's going to ultimately end up working out and how he's going to be integrated into their team minutes-wise and starter-wise, whatever. But I think basically you get two kind of similar types of players in some ways. It's kind of like the Zubats Daniel Tice thing in LA, where it's like, yeah, we have two guys who can screen, roll to the rim and be that vertical threat, and they're going to play defense and hold things down, hold their own and drop. And it's like, okay, cool. If one of them isn't working, we got the other one. Okay.
Yeah. Sweet.
But that's where I'm at with this trade. I feel like it was a good move by the Mavericks, which kind of feels like a rare thing to say sometimes.
I thought the Mavericks were big winners at the deadline in general. I'm sure we'll talk about the other trade that they made, and maybe that's not as much of a win just because of the pick protections and everything. But overall, when you have a chance to add some front court depth next to Luka and Kyrie, I'm thinking about the playoffs and just playoff rotations. And, it's funny because Dallas added a big, who was the other team in the West that we were talking about that added a big, or was it in the East? Sorry, Boston added a big. And so like some of these teams that maybe hope they can face against Jokic, or, like they're adding that assurance, right? And I think that's important going into the playoffs, because if you get thrown into a playoff series against, the Denver Nuggets, I would still favor the Nuggets, but you still have just a little bit more wiggle room, to your point, Alex, of letting Lively loose, letting Gafford loose, and not having to worry about the consequences there. And then on the other side, like, you still have Powell, who can be a sort of innings eater for you, just to take some fouls, be physical, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, just getting more front court depth is super important for a team that's just not good defensively.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you guys said. I think I like this pick a lot more than I like the other move they made. Yeah, I think like everything you guys said. Nothing else to add.
Vouch. Yeah.
Sweet. Moving on to this one. I'll just say it so that the listener can be informed. But you might have something to chime in on this. We'll see.
Sure.
Former Raptor involved. Celtics got a protected second-round pick. The Blazers got Delano Banton and cash considerations.
A top
Anything?
55 protected second round pick, by the way. So it's like, what is this move? They probably just needed to do some money stuff to get Jaden Springer on the team, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a second too. But
Next.
oh, really? Okay, so let's blend them together. So Jaden Springer for a second round pick, right?
Yeah, the 76ers received a Boston Celtics 2024 second round pick, and the Celtics got Jaden Springer.
Right. So, I mean, just by watching both of those guys, I can tell you that Jaden Springer is consequentially a better basketball player than Delano Banton. And, you know, maybe there's a world in which Banton like develops and grows and he has some nice, you know, physical features, just being able to be like a tall, big body ball handler. But I don't know. It has
fast too.
Yeah, he's ridiculously fast, great in transition. So I just don't know if that's something that's going to stick in the NBA. Who knows? Maybe it does. But Springer just brings another punch off of the bench, point of attack wise, for the Celtics. And it's like if Peyton Pritchard is just getting cooked, you know, getting mismatch hunted in the playoffs for a couple possessions, you can swing. Maybe you can throw Jaden Springer in there for a little bit again as an innings eater. I don't know how that's become like my favorite word here on this podcast, but just, you know, as a way to kind of eat some minutes. Yeah, I know. But I don't know. I guess I've been watching baseball lately. I haven't been watching any baseball, but yeah, just a way to eat some minutes, man. That's it. Jaden Springer does that, and point of attack defense is going to be important for the Celtics, especially when you have Drew and Derek White there already.
And I think the Celtics and I think the Suns as well, Celtics, Suns, Pacers, the teams like that who just can always have four shooters on the floor are like uniquely equipped to like handle these like one-way defensive specialists like Jaden Springer or Xavier Tillman. So I thought it was it was a nice little flyer to take if you're like you just need a more defensive oriented player as like that third guard off the bench or whatever. I saw Dan, friend of the show, he tweeted out, like he's tweeting from a Philly perspective. He just like didn't understand the point of this from Philly. And I really couldn't sympathize with somebody anymore. Like why? Like why would you trade it to your rival of all teams? Like it just made no sense whatsoever on that front. I mean, I understand the sense, it's like they're trying to save some money, but still no sense from a basketball perspective, considering these are billionaires we're saving money for. But yeah.
Yeah, I have pretty much nothing to add aside from the fact that I know Ben Pfeiffer, friend of the show, is either thrilled or pissed because he's like the biggest Jaden Springer believer that I know. So,
yeah, Hoop Goose, another friend of the show, he's also a huge Jaden Springer guy.
This is sick.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is weird because I'm going to call this somewhat inconsequential, but I mean, it's involving first round picks. So, I mean, I don't know. The Mavericks got, Mavs and Thunder swapped picks. The Mavericks got a 2024 first round pick, and the Thunder got a 2028 first round pick swap. Could be something that ends up being a big deal, but I don't really have anything to add on that.
Isn't that what helped facilitate the PJ Washington trade? Right?
I believe so.
I think it's the Gafford trade instead.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. The next trade is the Patrick Beverley trade. The Bucks received Patrick Beverley. The 76ers got Cameron Payne and a 2027 second round pick.
Weird trade. Very weird trade.
Very weird.
I get it from the Bucks perspective because, you know, you need that point of attack defense and maybe Pat Bev can do that and mend the ties with Damian Lillard and whatnot. But from the Sixers side of things, it's like, okay, do you know you're getting a backup point guard at some point? Like, do we know that Kyle Lowry is getting bought out and going to Philly? And if he is Kyle going to be the answer there? Like, he's been pretty poor for Miami this year. So I don't know if that makes a lot of sense for Philly. They have a big move that they made, and I'm sure we'll get to, but like the other, I guess, marginal moves they made were sort of confusing to me because it was like, all right, that big move that you made was clearly a, hey, let's bolster this roster, let's go and let's try to win, and, you know, once Embiid comes back type of thing. But this one, it just felt like it was going backwards a little bit because Bev was pretty important to their defense, I feel like.
I'll say, okay, to kind of push back on that just a little bit, I could see like So if you watch like Philly games these days, it's like when Maxey comes out, there's just nobody who can handle the basketball anymore and stir the drink. So Campaign does that better than Patrick Beverley, and I think Philly has more defense on their roster than Milwaukee, so they can kind of bear the brunt of Campaign's deficiencies on the end of the court in case they're not going to get Kyle Lowry or Kyle Lowry just doesn't work out for them. So I think that's kind of insurance for that. Speaking of the Philadelphia 76ers, I'm putting together. I was watching some Tyrese Maxey film the other day. I'm putting together this JF you guys have seen JFK, right? Movie. You know that scene when he goes in, what's his name?
I thought you were about to ask us if we'd seen the Zapruder film. I was like,
no, you know what? I'm not even gonna go. I'm working on something about Tyrese Maxey. Just be ready for it.
Okay.
But,
oh yeah.
So on the Milwaukee Bucks side, me and Alex have talked a bunch about like they need that like fifth guy to kind of make their 5-man lineup, their best 5-man lineup make sense. You know, obviously in the playoffs it's going to be Dame, Middleton, Giannis, Lopez, right? As 4 of your 5 in the closing 5. But like who's that fifth guy? Like can they get somebody who doesn't kill them on offense and like can anchor their point of attack defense? And I think Beverly's a good point of attack defender, but I think he does kill them on offense at this point in time. So I don't see this move making the Bucks inner circle title contenders for me. Not that it doesn't make them a better team. I just don't think it vaults them there.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaving the door open on this trade where like I'm not ready to call it. For the 76ers, I kind of question it a little bit. But from the Bucks perspective, I'm going to kind of wait and see how it plays out because I know how important Patrick Beverley can be for teams. We saw it with the Timberwolves. Even this year with Philly, he's been able to contribute in a lot of different ways for them. I agree with the idea that, he pretty much lacks perimeter shooting almost entirely. Calling it shaky is kind of like a generous way to put it. He's simply just a bad 3-point shooter right now. But I feel as though it's possible that the Bucks might be able to live with that just because of the defensive boost that they're going to get. And he can still be efficient from other areas of the floor. And he's a solid enough passer just in terms of like making the right reads. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, it could end up being no better than Campaign. It could end up being worse than Campaign. But it was a move where low risk, high potential for a good return on their investment. And given the assets that they had, it's like your assets were crippling you in what you could do. And I think this was really the only move they could have made. I don't know what else they could have done. This Campaign, if you're trading him, what you're going to get is probably a Patrick Beverley in return. So, on to a couple of point guards. The Nets acquired Dennis Schroeder and Thaddeus Young, and the Raptors received Spencer Dinwiddie. And it's worth pointing out that Dennis Schroeder is on he has 2 years left on his contract, 1 or 2 years. He's not expiring.
Yeah, he's another year left on his deal worth just over $13 million. And then I guess the other thing that's worth noting is that Dinwiddie is getting waived by the Raptors, so he's not going to be. Yeah.
He was an expiring anyways, which was the next thing I was going to say.
Yes.
So either way, he would have been off the books pretty soon.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to Dennis Smith Jr. being included in the trade?
That was a lie. It was it was an autocorrect mistake by Woj. It got a lot of people excited in Raptors world. We're like, Dennis Smith Jr. nice, but no, it was just a straight salary dump for kind of an expiring deal type of thing.
Darn.
Could you imagine?
I think we're about to say the same thing. Dennis Smith Jr. and Emmanuel Quickly defensively, and
I was saying, could you imagine like the offensive rating for a Dennis Schroeder, Dennis Smith Jr. front court?
Goodness,
man. I guess this was a weird trade because the Raptors had they had used Schroeder a lot this season, especially once he became the full-time backup. I thought he was actually pretty good for them. He was in a lot of closing lineups for them. Now, to be fair, they're not a very good team. So like that is part of it, you know. But also I think part of it was that he signed up in the summer to be the starting point guard of this team. And once that stopped happening like 2 months ago, I think the window was there for him to potentially get moved to a team where he could start and where he could potentially be on a playoff team. Now, to be fair, are the Nets that? Like, are the Nets going to be a playoff team where he can be a starting point guard on? He might be able to be their starting point guard, but I don't think he will be. I don't think they'll be in the playoffs is the way I should put this.
It's like he's their starting point guard derogatory.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, that's not a good thing.
Yeah. And it was not a good thing for the Raptors while that was going down too. So I don't know. I think this is more so just to open up cap space for Toronto. Now they have like $40 million in cap space, which will probably be used to give Scotty Barnes that rookie max extension, re-sign quickly, re-sign Olynyk, and maybe add like an MLE guy to their rotation. So yeah.
Where's Dinwiddie gonna go?
That's a good question.
He matters. I feel like he definitely matters.
China?
No, he's not going.
He's not. Yeah.
What
I've
about
seen
the
the
Bucks?
Mavericks.
Oh, the Mavericks
it
are
out.
interesting. Yeah. What about the
Mavericks
Bucks?
is weird. Bucks
Bucks?
is, what do they gain for, like, I guess
I
like
don't
it's more
know.
like, I like him on Philly, honestly. I think they should go for him instead of Kyle Lowry.
It's not a bad one. Yeah.
I guess no, the Bucks is a good one. It just wouldn't like they would.
Bucks
like,
is like
good.
Bucks is like he's like he's not a good defender, but he at least has size. So he's like what is he 6'5"? I think 6'4",
Yeah.
6'5".
Yeah.
So maybe you can. I don't know. I guess that's the only way I would sell it for the Bucks.
Does anybody remember when he used to be like considered like a big point guard? Like he first came out of college and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, this guy's huge." He's like Michael Carter Williams, who's also like 6'5" or whatever. He's like, "This guy's a huge ball handler." Like, have you ever seen anything like it?
He is listed at 6'6" on Cleaning the Glass. Now, you can look at any different website and it's going to tell you a different height. So
They have me
who
listed
knows
at
if that's
6'1".
actually true? They have what?
They have me listed at 6'1".
Yeah, I'm a solid 5'11" in Cleaning the Glasses books.
What's the crap? I was looking at Spencer Dinwiddie's height and I got away from my trade document.
While you're
As
looking for
long
that,
as
I'll
they're-
say
Okay, go ahead.
he raises the Bucks floor but doesn't raise their ceiling. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that's definitely fair. I think a good version of Spencer Dinwiddie, which we've seen at various points throughout his career, helps the Bucks a ton. But like this current version of Spencer Dinwiddie doesn't
does
do a
not.
whole lot.
Yeah.
But yes, agree, it raises their floor. The next trade, and this is kind of on paper, it's like it doesn't seem as big of a trade as it actually was because some of the names involved, it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But the New York Knicks acquired Alec Burks, as we talked about. They acquired Bojan Bogdanovic. The Pistons get Evan Fournier, who I believe they waived, or is he still?
No, he's still on the team because I think they'd have to take a
Okay.
huge cap hit. I think he's an expiring though. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure he's
okay.
expiring.
He has a team option, but they're obviously not going to pick that up next year.
Gotcha. Malachi Flynn, former Raptor. Quentin Grimes, who I think that was kind of like, okay, good job, Pistons, getting Quentin Grimes. Man of the podcast today, Ryan Arcidiacono was included.
Man of the people.
Two future second round picks and good old reliable cash considerations.
Nice.
How y'all feeling about this?
So honestly, so for the Pistons, like this deal hinges on what Quentin Grimes is as a basketball player. And he, to me, like I think I've talked about this with Alex, but he perplexes me. Like it's like you watch this guy, well, you think about him in theory, right? Think about him theoretically. You're like, this is like the quintessential modern day 3-and-D player. He's a good shooter, quick release, attacks closeouts really hard, he's super athletic, good defender, can defend on and off the ball, switchy, all that stuff, right? And, he has like a high motor. And for some reason, like Tom Thibodeau just didn't play him, didn't like him really, liked Josh Hart over him. And like, usually I would say like, Tom Thibodeau, old school coach, he's made some questionable decisions in the past, but for the last 2 years, this guy has been pushing every right button. It feels like every button he pushes is like gold. Like Tom Thibodeau's looked awesome as a coach. So my thing is like which version of Grimes is the real one? Is it the theoretical one that kind of came out last year when the Knicks made their turnaround? Is that who the Pistons are getting? Because if that is who they're getting, like this is an awesome deal for them, and he's going to be a part of their future. He's going to be next to Cade Cunningham. They're going to win playoff games together. Or is Thibodeau seeing something is he privy to something about him that we're not? And if that's the case, I mean, it's still not a bad deal for the Pistons, but it's just like it definitely de-sweetens the coffee, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's a weird unknown element to this Grimes Thibodeau thing that makes, I mean, we could go either way. We could say, well, was Grimes affected by Thibodeau this season in the sense that he just lost all of his confidence? Because there were moments where his shot was just not there. And he just was missing a lot of just wide open looks. He was hesitant on some of those looks too in the Knicks rotation. And you're wondering if the confidence element maybe hurt his ability to be the type of player he wanted to be this season. And then the relationship with the coach and training staff, and he was unhappy. There was this quote that he had, or JJ Redick sort of hinted at him not being able or not being allowed to take mid-range shots. Like Thibodeau just said, you're not allowed to take mid-range shots. And when you limit a player like that, that could also mess up their mojo and rhythm. So I don't know which one it is, to be honest with you, Matt, but I think in the Pistons, we just talked about Fontecchio. In that sort of same ilk, he can be thrown in there as a sort of connector, as a guy who can be a two-way presence. I think the defense is going to pop off the charts almost immediately. And if if he can gain confidence in his shot again, then the Pistons have a really, really good player, a nice guy who's going to fit into their system really well. So I like it from Detroit's perspective because you take out Bogdanovich, you take out Burks, but you add Fontecchio, you add Grimes, and these are two guys that you hope can supplement. Well, they're younger, and they can supplement some of the stuff that those guys do, maybe to a better degree.
Yeah, Quentin Grimes is really the big swing factor for the Pistons for me, because I know there's a lot of people, a lot of draft people that I've talked to, feel this way about Quentin Grimes. A lot of Knicks fans that I talk to about Quentin Grimes, they're like, he's capable of being a lot more than he has been just because, Thibs is Thibs and he's going to do what he does and he operates his way. And at this point, I think most people just kind of accept that's who he is as a coach and how he operates. And Quentin Grimes is a player that you could argue maybe fell victim to that. So the Pistons, it's okay, you're giving up two players who, like we talked about earlier, they do things that are very good. They can be positive players in certain aspects of the game, but the Pistons do not need specialists. They need generalists. They need neutral generalists. And Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic are not that. Yeah. Quentin Grimes is a guy who can be, especially in a pressure-free environment like Detroit. I feel like he's going to have that freedom to be a quote-unquote neutral generalist while also being allowed to explore what he's capable of as a second side creator. Maybe take some mid-range shots here and there, punish some closeouts and see what you're capable of, because the volume, mid-range wise, I don't think we've even seen enough to talk about if he can or can't hit them. Because if you look at if you look at his career up to this point, 2022, he took 21 mid-range shots, and this includes floater range as well. So bear that in mind. 2022, 21 mid-range shots. 2023, 34 mid-range shots. This year, 14 mid-range shots. He's taken less than 100 mid-range shots throughout his entire career. And if that's something that he can actually hit at a consistent rate, his ability to operate as an off-ball player on the offensive side of the floor is way higher. Guys who it's like the idea of like a pass, dribble, shoot wing, where it's like, okay, yes, he can hit, catch, and shoot threes, and he can get to the rim off closeouts and finish. But when you also add that mid-range element to it, where the defense is like, okay, we're going to close out as hard as we possibly can because we know we're going to have the help waiting for you at the rim. The guys like the KCPs of the world who can just one dribble right into that mid-range and hit it at a high rate, those guys are so stinking valuable, and they'll have a place in the league for a long time, especially when you're the defender that Quentin Grimes is / theoretically is. So yeah, when you watch him play, I posted a clip of when they were playing the Hornets. Brandon Miller and Nick Smith Jr. were at the point of attack defending Miles McBride and Quentin Grimes at the top of the key. And Quentin Grimes and McBride were just passing back and forth, dribbling to the nail, and then Brandon Miller or Nick Smith would come and bring that help at the nail and shut it down. And McBride was a little more aggressive, but Quentin Grimes, you could tell he just had no confidence getting through that nail help. He would get to the nail, pass it. He'd get it back, pump fake, dribble to the nail, pass it. He just didn't look comfortable at all. Granted, that's a testament to, Brandon Miller and Nick Smith Jr. defensively. I think they've been really, really good, but that's another discussion for another podcast. But yeah, the idea that Quentin Grimes has lost some sort of confidence and doesn't feel empowered in some way, I think that is apparent when you watch him play. And I hope that's not the case in Detroit. And we've been kind of looking at this through a very Detroit lens, but I think
there's a Knicks side to this too. Yeah.
I think this makes them a real threat. I think they are a significantly better team because of this trade.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm still not ready to go inner circle title contender yet, only because I'm still worried about the Julius Randle of it all. I'm still worried about how many times Brunson can just get double teamed, and how much I think Hartenstein is great at turning these 4-on-3 situations, but still, like, it's you got to do it if you're gonna have to do it every single possession for a whole game. Like, can you consistently execute? Also, can you have the shooting to execute?
Also, Hartenstein Achilles issue is kind of becoming a bit of a thing. He left last night's game with another sore Achilles, so it's like they have to manage this Achilles tendonitis thing that he's going to deal with, and that's like another big man you might be having to either manage his minutes or he's going to be resting back-to-backs and all that type of stuff, No,
and the thing is, like, the thing we don't talk about it. Well, we probably do. Maybe not us, but other people do. But is like he didn't. What was the stat like before Mitchell Robinson got hurt? He like played like 30 minutes in a game like 7 times his entire career. Like, he's notorious for only being like a 23, 27 minute per game guy who just kind of goes all out, kind of like an Alex Caruso type. So that's starting to wear on his body. And the thing is, like, as great of a season Mitchell Robinson was having, now that I'm seeing Brunson with Hartenstein, I'm realizing how much Robinson kind of limited Brunson offensively just because he couldn't turn double teams as well as Hartenstein does. So they still are flawed. I think going back to what I said like at the very beginning of the podcast with like how one-way players can thrive in stronger ecosystems, like this is a great time like for like a Bojan Bogdanovic. Like you put him next to, I don't know, Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, who's just the man now, but he's the freaking man. He should get a key to the city of New York because that guy is a hooper. OG Anunoby, Hartenstein. Like if you put Bojan next to those 4 guys, him being a bad defender, not really that much of a problem anymore. And then you're just like, wow, this guy is such a skilled scorer. Like it's awesome to watch. Same thing with Alec Burks. So I really like them. I think they have the juice to win 2 playoff series, but I still don't have them in my little special circle.
I agree. I don't think they're in that inner circle, but I do think they could give that inner circle some trouble in a playoff series. Just like a frisky series against the Celtics or, a frisky series against the Bucks. I think they could beat the Bucks in a playoff series, to be honest with you. I think they could beat the Sixers in a playoff series. I just think they have a lot of tools available to them. And one of the calling cards of a really good playoff team is being able to go to different things and different looks. And when you have that level of versatility that the Knicks have, which is, hey, we can go smaller, We can go bigger. We can go to these double big lineups. We can go really small if we want to and throw like OG at center and just go like pace and space. Let's run. Now, to be fair, you need Thibodeau to be fluid and flexible to do that. And for what it's worth, I think he's, like, to your point earlier, Matt, like, he's been excellent at just trying things, going off the rip, and, like, you know, he's pushing all the right buttons, like you said. I think they have a level of versatility that can be tapped into in a massive way in the playoffs. And that always causes headaches for potential playoff opponents. And, like, you know, last year against the Cavs, it was, we're just going to be more physical than you. We're going to hunt offensive rebounds. We're going to score in isolation with Randall and Brunson. And now it's like, okay, we can do that, but we can also run, and we can also defend the hell out of the ball at the point of attack. And we can, you know, get these leak out kind of offensive possessions that can look really, really fun, like New York basketball type. So the Knicks are good, man. They're one of the best stories in the NBA this season. And it's just fun to see, like, they sort of embody what you would want out of a Knicks team too, which is the coolest part of it. You know, they feel like a New York basketball team, which is, yeah.
Did you guys see that tweet that went out? I think it was NBA Central. It was like an anonymous GM. They were talking about Jalen Brunson. You guys see it yesterday? I might have got lost in all the trade buzz.
I probably missed it.
Yeah.
But he was just saying, like, he's like, man, that, like, he is such like a he's such a tough out. Like, he does not go down without a fight. And that's, like, you're talking about, like, giving the Celtics, like, imagine having to see, like, this version of Jalen Brunson in a 7-game series.
Oh yeah.
Like, they are not going to go down without a fight. There's just so many little, like, wrinkles to that team that really impressed me, like how perfect of a fit Dante DiVincenzo and OG Anunoby are together on defense, how synchronized they are. It's just, it's yeah, like you said, it's an incredible story. I'm excited to watch them. Hopefully they stay healthy, knock wood, but I'm excited to watch them this postseason.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to the next trade, one of the, I guess, headlining trades at the trade deadline was the Thunder trading for Gordon Hayward, who was kind of rumored to be a buyout candidate leading up to the trade deadline. So this kind of came out of nowhere. There was no buzz about this. OKC is a notoriously tight-lipped organization, so that's no surprise. But the Hornets received Vasilije Micic, Trey Mann, Davis Bertans, 2024 second-round pick via the Rockets, and a 2025 second-round pick via the 76ers. I'll go ahead and say my piece as the resident Thunder fan. I love this trade for so many different reasons. I think this trade scratches more itches than are immediately visible. For some context, to those who maybe haven't watched a ton of Thunder games this year, first of all, you're missing out.
Yeah,
Second
why
of
aren't
all,
you?
Yeah, you're insane. Granted, they haven't gotten as many national TV games as they deserve, but that's a different discussion for a different podcast. Trey Mann was basically not playing. I think he was playing 9 minutes per game. I think Trey Mann has potential to be a contributing player in some context. OKC is not that environment. His style of play is very antithetical to how OKC operates.
Good word.
Thank you. As our really, you probably break out the biggest words out of both of us on the podcast. So that's high praise coming from you, Matt. Bertans' contract was bad, and he wasn't really playing. When he would play, it was like, yeah, this guy should not be on the floor. And then the second round picks. Micic is the only thing to me that you can kind of look at and be like, already? Right. Like, it's over that fast? Right. And that bums me out just because for those who don't know, OKC has had his draft rights for like 6 years, something like that, for a really, really long time. And they were trying every year to persuade him to come to the NBA. And he was like, nope, I'm going to stay overseas. And then this year, we finally got him to come overseas and play in the NBA on a very, very good contract as well. His role was a little inconsistent, and, you know, you never got the vibe that he was operating how he wanted to operate. He was kind of, he had to play within the realms of what OKC does. I think that's fine. But the impact that they were looking for probably wasn't what they were hoping it would be. I think he's going to be great in Charlotte. obviously the main factor in this trade is Gordon Hayward for OKC.
Yeah.
Not only is Gordon Hayward still a very good NBA player when healthy, you cannot find for a guy playing 29 minutes a game, you really can't find much better production than him. The shooting is a little inconsistent. It's like around, I think this year it's down, but history shows he's around like at least a 37% 3-point shooter. And he can knock them down and be honored by defenses. He can do that little secondary creation just off the catch. Knows how to collapse defenses, which is obviously the thing that OKC is looking for in a lot of their wings. They just want guys who are going to get the ball and either shoot it, drive, and then not even necessarily get to the rim and finish, but make the right read first and foremost. Like, know who's open, know where they are, and know how to get the ball there. And Gordon Hayward can absolutely do that. I think something OKC's been lacking for a while is a veteran presence. Just the older guy in the locker room that can keep a level head. I think Gordon Hayward's going to be able to do that fantastically. And then I don't know how much we should really dive in this just yet, but the implications it has for the Josh Giddey question is really what this trade addresses to me, where I could see a world where Giddey may keep starting, but Gordon Hayward might get his minutes and Giddey might end up with Micic's old amount of minutes, just because it's like Giddey can do things well, but the things he does well don't really matter for how OKC works, especially with the starters. It's like, yeah, you can make some really, really nice passes. If the three ball's falling, defenses sag off you, so it's like great when you knock them down because you're wide open anyways, but I have really big concerns, especially in the postseason, if defenses start honoring him a little bit more, him being able to continue to have an impact offensively. So I don't know. I think Gordon Hayward is kind of Josh Giddey insurance at minimum. And personally, I feel he's much more than that. I think he's a very high level contributor for this team heading into the postseason where the West kind of feels wide open.
Mm-hmm. They just need to they just need him to stay healthy, man. Like that's the only thing that I have with this Hayward deal. I don't have it on me right now, but he's missed games this season. He's pretty much missed games every year he's been in Charlotte. And for what it's worth, I think there's a world in which maybe that changes on a team that is actually trying to compete and is actually trying to use him in their playoff rotation. And, we've seen this before where guys deal with injuries and, maybe once they get traded to a team that is actually trying to be competitive, they put their, for a lack of better terms, they put their best foot forward in that situation. That's the only concern I have. But I agree with everything else you said. Like, he is Giddey insurance. Matt mentioned the zone issues, and, he sort of helps that element too, just because he can space the floor, he can create, because he's like a big body, he can actually even serve as a bit of a zone breaker. Like, he can flash middle, make a play, like all that stuff is kind of good for what Gordon Hayward can do. And then you add the little bit of creation juice. I would say if you're missing Micic, like, Hayward will be able to supply you with those bench unit creation minutes that it was with what I believe Micic, J-Dub, and, they would run that was like the sort of creation group that they would have off of the bench, what I mean, to kind of facilitate things. Hayward can do that. And I think that's going to be important down the stretch for this Thunder team and in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'll also say another plus of this is I think the Thunder are 99th percentile in terms of how much their offensive rating changes when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's on the floor and off the floor. And that's awesome when he's on the floor because they're getting a huge boost, but when he's off the floor, it's a little bit murky.
Yeah.
Jalen Williams is kind of in charge of anchoring their bench lineups, and I think he does like a pretty good job, but he's still just one man. I think having him and Gordon Hayward like dual spearhead bench lineups now will definitely help. And like we've been talking about, he kind of answers that question of like, who's the fifth guy to close games for them? Mm-hmm. And, Giddey, he has his limitations, obviously, both on offense and defense. So Hayward shores that up. Two things I wanted to point out. Alex, you were kind of alluding to the fact that Hayward the Thunder might have been able to get Hayward in the buyout market instead of trading for him. I would say the two reasons why they probably just ended up trading for him is, one, I read a report that he wasn't going to seek a buyout, so he might have not been available for them to get in the buyout market. And then two, if he was on the buyout market, just from like in terms of like logistics and like living situation, would he probably have picked the OKC Thunder as his destination? I don't know. So it makes sense why they would deal for him.
That's low. That's low, Matt.
You're right. Hey, who knows? Maybe right. He likes it. Maybe he is
a weird guy. He came last season with that weird ass haircut. So I mean, he's a strange guy.
The mullet. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's like a fever dream. To the injury point, which is definitely worth talking about. Do you guys feel as though not having to be like such a main piece for the Thunder is going to allow him to prevent injuries a little bit more, maybe playing fewer minutes than he has over the last few years, maybe not having to brunt so much of an offensive load as he has the last few years, and just kind of being a role player? Do you think that will help prevent injuries at all?
Maybe. I imagine he'll rest back-to-backs, which will help too. And I think he already does with Charlotte. But I think there's a world in which that works. Like if he's, what's his minute load right now? I think like maybe like 25, 20, you said 29 earlier. Like
I think it's 29. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah. If he's reduced to like 20 instead of 29, that could work. There's a world in which that makes more sense and he's healthier. I also think like, he can
real quick. I'm way off. He's played over the last 4 seasons. He's consistently averaged 32 minutes a game.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
I did not realize it was that high.
Yeah, that is pretty high. So yeah, I would agree with you then that like, let's say if he's at 22 to 25 minutes a night and he's resting back to backs and by the way, like he's only there for the next 30 games plus the playoffs. So you can sort of ease him into things until you get to the postseason. And in the postseason, you can kind of pick and choose your spots where you want to use him. But I think I'm okay with that from an injury perspective, if that's the case.
The Thunder also have had really good injury luck this year. So maybe that just rubs off on him.
Well, hopefully you say that. Hopefully it doesn't come crashing and burning in the postseason.
That's another knock. Well, knock on the table. Sorry.
So we'll move on to the Suns making some moves, which I was pretty impressed with. I say moves. They got one player of consequence in my humble opinion. The Suns acquired Royce O'Neal and David Roddy. The Grizzlies received this is a 3-team trade, by the way. The Grizzlies received a 2026 first-round pick swap via the Suns, Chimezi Metu, Yuta Watanabe, and then the Nets received Keita Bates-Diop, Jordan Goodwin, the draft rights to Vanja Marinkovic, and 3 future second-round picks via the Suns.
Okay.
I think the Royce O'Neal of it all is kind of the big thing here. How do you guys feel the Suns will be looking to use him?
That's kind of, I think in an ideal world, Royce O'Neal is a guy, like typically 3-and-D type of guy who can make plays for you out of the second side a little bit. I think the shooting element is important. The Suns sort of need, like they have Grayson Allen, who's been really exceptional for them, really good this year. And Nurkic has been surprisingly good for them. But I think they need just another guy if one of those guys isn't working. And Royce is 6'5", so you can sort of put him at the point of attack and he can play a little bit bigger than a prototypical 6'5" guy. And so that's where the ideal world works. I still have questions about, for Phoenix, if you need that extra creation juice, a lot of people have brought up like a backup point guard for the Suns and what that might do for them. Royce doesn't necessarily scratch that itch. And I mean, they get another 3-and-D player, which is the crux of this trade. And when you have those types of players that can play off of the advantages that Booker, Beal, and Durant can create, then it sort of makes sense offensively. The defensive side of the ball is what I'm sort of curious about, and how they kind of throw them in there, because what you already have in Grayson Allen and even Booker and Durant are some of the things that Royce can do. It's not bad to have extra of that, but I just don't know. But I mean, they add talent. Like that's a good rotation player that they've added, and they need that sort of depth, right? That's one of the issues with Phoenix this year too. So
I will say, Alex, I'm a little bit more bullish on David Roddy than you. I will also say, if you didn't notice, me and Alex are big Royce O'Neal guys, big fans of Royce O'Neal. We've had a segment on him, but I don't like. So this, I think this is like I was talking about the Bucks. If they were to get Spencer Dinwiddie earlier, it raises their floor, doesn't raise their ceiling. That's kind of what this does for me. Where it's like, okay, so again, when I'm talking about inner circle contenders, the first thing I'm usually talking about is like, how fast is your fastball? So how good is your best 5-man lineup? And I think the Thunder have like the Suns have like two variations of their best 5-man lineup, where it's like they do their starting 5, which is, Allen, Beal, Durant, Booker, Nurkic. And while in terms of net rating and stuff, they're just as good as any team in the NBA, that 5-man rating, that 5-man lineup, they have two major weaknesses to me. The ball handling creation, which we've seen when they play better defenses, they start to get put in the mud a little bit, and then they don't have a lot of size. And their second 5-man lineup is even smaller when they go small ball and sub Eric Gordon in for Nurkic. That's a prolific lineup. They get a lot of points up, but they don't have that much size. They have a little bit more creation with Eric Gordon, but still physicality, size, they don't really have that. And so Royce O'Neal, he looks bigger on TV. I feel like he looks bigger than 6'5", but he is only 6'5". So
yeah.
What are you like? I guess my thing is like, okay, where does he fit in that best 5-man lineup? Like, do you put him in there instead of Eric Gordon when you go small? You're still really small. He's not like an elite defender. It's not like you're putting Herb Jones out there. Mm-hmm. Or do you put him in for Grayson Allen in your starting lineup? And then you lose all the stuff that Grayson Allen does for you. So it's like it gives them more depth. It's more talent, but their upside hasn't changed for me.
Yeah, I think it's a good trade, but not one that this is not a trade that to me made the Suns like, oh, they're real scary now. It's like they're roughly equally as scary as they were before, which is still, the best version of this Suns team with their 3-headed dragon is fantastic. No one's going to deny that, but there's so many teams in the West that's like they've got 4 or 5-headed dragons that they throw at you, and it's like you can't stop it, or they'll stop you no matter what. I still need to see this team like beat the crap out of some teams for like 2 weeks straight, just like murder teams consistently. I need to see one long stretch where they're just out of control, and I'm with you, just haven't seen it yet. So if y'all are good with it, there's a lot of guys that were included with this trade, but for the sake of time, we can go ahead and move to the second to last trade that we got here. The Philadelphia 76ers acquired Buddy Hield from the Pacers. The Pacers got Korkmaz, Doug McDermott, 2024 second-round pick via the Raptors, 2029 second-round pick via the Blazers, and cash considerations via the 76ers. The Spurs got Marcus Morris, who I believe was waived, and a 2029 second-round pick from the Clippers, as well as cash considerations. Yep. Obviously, Buddy Hield's the headliner here. Do you guys think this means Embiid's coming back by the playoffs?
I think it's a bit of both. Like, I think it's sort of an audition to see how Buddy would work in their system once Embiid comes back. And then, if they like it, and I for what it's worth, I think it would be a pretty seamless fit. I obviously have questions about the point of attack defense and how that would look, but I think offensively, he's one of the best shooters in the league. And when you throw that with a guy who seeks so much attention like Joel does, it's just going to be a seamless fit every single time. So I think offensively, it makes a lot of sense. And if Embiid does come back by April, then it's like you have this offensive firepower between him, Maxey, and Embiid. That's just like, can you imagine the Spain pick and roll stuff that they could do? It would be insane to guard. And so, yeah, I think it makes sense for them offensively. And then if they want, they can sign him long term to a deal, this summer because they have that cap space available to them. I guess the only thing there is like how much money Buddy wants, because that was the big issue in Indiana and that was the big sticking point. So are they going to be able to cough up the 30 plus million or something that he's looking for? Is Buddy worth the 30 plus million that he's looking for? I don't necessarily think so. So I guess that's a situation you have to think about in the summer. But for now, if Embiid is coming back in 2 months and you're trying to make a playoff run, Buddy's a pretty good talent to add.
Yeah, they didn't give up any meaningful assets. I like his fit in terms of like kind of this offense Nurse is installed with all the quick hitting actions, the DHOs, delay stuff. It's also something that's kind of like, I feel like it's counterintuitive. It's like you look at their roster, you start naming off guys like Maxey can shoot threes, Batum shoots threes, and Embiid's like a stretch five technically with his 3-point shooting. But they're only 27th in the NBA in 3-pointers made, so like that's a nice little boost right there that Hield's obviously going to give you. I like the deal. I think it can be helpful both in the present and the long term. Yeah, as long as they retain him, of course.
Yeah, that's the big caveat here. Is like you got to make sure you keep him. But either way, the stuff they gave up, it's inconsequential.
Inconsequential. Yeah.
Moving on to
word of the pod.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've used that a lot. Last trade, one of the biggest by far. The Mavericks trading for PJ Washington, a 2024 second round pick, a 2028 second round pick, and they sent off to Charlotte Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and a 2027 first round pick that I believe is lightly protected.
It's top 2 protected.
It's very lightly protected.
Yeah.
I thought this was net value considering what they had to give up to get Grant Williams. Bad.
True.
Making good out of a bad situation, this was a good trade.
The 2027 Dallas Mavericks might look different. is the only caveat I would throw out for this. I think it's a really, really risky move, as is the 2029 first that they gave up for Kyrie, but it seems like they are willing to take these kind of risky moves in order to, help Luka compete and win now, which is obviously important to them. I do wonder, though, if they look back on this. And PJ Washington's a good player. He just dropped one of the most random 43-point games you'll ever see in your life. If you watched that, it was insane to me that he dropped 43. And I think he can stretch the floor. I think he can be in some small ball 5 lineups. Like that's something that could be interesting to throw out there. Although I don't know how much you'd want to do that because of the Mavericks' defensive issues. Ultimately, he gives them just a better player than what Grant Williams is for them at that same position. So it works. It makes this current team better. But then from a value perspective, when you look at a top 2 protected 2027 pick, like that could potentially be a lottery pick in the West. When you think about, all these other teams, you look at the Mavericks right now and they're, I believe, either in the play-in race or they're maybe 6th. Yeah, they're in the play-in race. They're 8th in the Western Conference. And this team is, how much more is this team going to improve tangibly, especially with the West seemingly continually going to be better. Like there's still going to be very, very good teams that are in front of the Mavericks. And so every year there's going to be a chance that they might not make the playoffs. How are you going to rationalize that when you get to 2027 and maybe Luka Doncic isn't happy, or maybe by that point Kyrie Irving is a little bit like less of the player that he is. And I just don't know how you can rationalize giving a top 2 protected pick in 2027 for a guy like PJ Washington, where there was rumors that they wanted to go for Kyle Kuzma, which I think would have made more sense for the value that they sent out. But yeah, that's, I guess, the crux of it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to the Dunked On podcast yesterday, and they kind of summarized like the state of the Dallas Mavericks perfectly to me. It's where they have Luka and Kyrie, phenomenal players, and then they have like a bunch of like 7th or 8th guys on their team, which is like overarching, like, again, I know I keep bringing up the inner circle, outer circle title contenders. Like this doesn't, bringing in PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, it makes them better, but it doesn't move that needle for me where I'm like, okay, these guys are like legitimate. Obviously, when you're Luka Doncic and you're in a playoff series, that's another hard guy to bring down in a fight, right?
Yeah.
But overall, it doesn't move the needle for me. And also, I mean, again, I might be alone on this island. I understand he rubbed them the wrong way, whatever. But Grant Williams is still a good basketball player. I think this is the start of Grant Williams is going to become the new Dylan Brooks in that he's a big, strong guy who rubs people the wrong way, hits spot-up threes, and he's just going to keep getting traded to teams that need to learn how to win. I think he's going to teach the Hornets how to win. He's going to teach them how to win, and then he's going to, run his course there. They're going to want him out once they're ready to, be a really good team. And he's going to move to some other team that's really bad, teach them how to be solid, and then, keep doing that until the end of time.
Yeah, I actually really like this trade for Charlotte. I think this was fantastic. Getting a guy like Grant Williams for the team that they are, it's like, yeah, we can live with the stuff that Grant Williams does that pisses us off sometimes because we're bad. Like, yeah, we just need someone who's gonna do enough things right that it makes us they're so bad that someone like Grant Williams is probably going to have a significant impact on their ability to win games or learn how to try to win games in the first place. And Seth Curry, he is what he is at this point. He's going to shoot threes. That's pretty much all he's going to do. You're not going to get a whole lot out of him defensively at all. Anything
he's going back home.
Arc. Yeah, I was going to say, he's, that's they're from Charlotte. I'm pretty sure Del Curry announces Hornets games. So it's a cool story. That's something that they can be happy about. And that 2027 first round pick, you could argue for Dallas, it's they're just doing what they need to do to keep Luka, and I understand that. But that pick, I don't know what the 2027 draft looks like. That's 3 years down the road, but that could definitely work in Charlotte's favor, especially as they're starting to move out of their maybe we're going to be trying to be better eventually into more of a true, legitimate, all right, we're rebuilding, we're going for a youth movement, and we're going to rock with that and see what happens. All of that being said, I don't dislike this trade for Dallas. I think they made, like I said, some good out of a bad situation. I'm very interested to see what PJ Washington looks like in lineups with Daniel Gafford. I think as a front court defensively, that's a lot of length. And PJ Washington has some versatility as a defender. So I'm interested to see what that looks like. I'm going to reserve too much criticism or too much praise for them in regards to this trade right now, but I think it's got potential and allows them to just rely on the Luka factor of it all a little bit more, where it's hey, maybe Luka can just be so good that you make it to the Western Conference Finals. Because we've seen it happen before with what I would argue, I mean, they had Jalen Brunson, so it's not like they were a bad team, but, they can do anything with Luka and a guy next to Luka who knows what he's doing. So I don't know. Who knows with the Mavericks? But unless you guys have anything else, that is going to wrap it up for this trade deadline edition of the Media Pass. S, thank you so much for doing this. We were unsure because we know you are a very, very busy guy. You're announcing games for a league or something now?
No, there's this developmental league in Canada called the National Preparatory Association, and they get a bunch of prep teams around Canada and even some teams around the States, and so they bring them together every month and sort of play out games. And I've been doing play-by-play for that, which is really, really, really fun to do. But I'm never busy. I'm never too busy for y'all, man. I appreciate you guys having me on as always. Thank you. It's always good talking hoops with both of you guys. You guys are always very insightful and rational and just smart hoop heads and whatnot. So, I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. Anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
If you like Raptors stuff, I do Raptors YouTube stuff for Raptors Republic. I write Raptors stuff for Forbes. And that's pretty much it for me. Thank you, man. Appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah. Guys, go check out all of S's stuff. We'll leave some links down in the description, show notes, whatever. You can find all of his stuff here. As always, leave a 5-star rating if you enjoyed it. Go check us out on Twitter at Mat Issa 15 at AlexHoops _. Thank you all so much for listening, watching, whatever, and we'll see you next time.